seats or more of a...
Seems like a skeleton crew here this evening.
I make motion to adjourn.
Set a new start time.
That's probably what it is.
You gotta get out of here, buddy.
Yeah.
Ready, Stace? March 28th regular meeting of Amherst City Council come to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Winarski?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. Janik?
Here.
Mr. Bukovac?
Here.
Mr. Goodell?
Here.
Mr. Van Schuren? Mrs. Vasilk? Here.
Mr. Goodell.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Treasurer Ramsey, Safety Service Director Jeffries, and Councilman Banshore
From tonight's meeting, Ms. Vasil.
Second.
Motion second on the floor to excuse those three from tonight's meeting. They have letters on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, they're excused. Stand by the prayer by Chaplain Vasil. Remain standing for the pledge of the flag by Sergeant Amherst Bukovac.
Will you bow with me, please? Gracious God, bless this meeting tonight. Guide our thoughts and words and inspire us. This evening we pray a special blessing on those men, women, and children who are traveling in Belgium and celebrating in Pakistan and who had their lives destroyed by yet another act of senseless violence. Help us all work together to find peace. And now may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to item 4, the consent agenda.
Minutes of the regular council meeting held March 14th, 2016. Minutes of the Building and Lands Committee meeting held March 21st, 2016.
Mr. Miller.
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Mr. Janik.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to accept the consent agenda as read. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mrs. Vasilk?
Yes.
Motion carries. Move on to item 6, or item 5, acknowledgement of the public pertaining to items on tonight's agenda. Anyone here wishing to speak on anything that is on tonight's agenda? If not, we'll move on to item 6, ordinances and resolutions, first reading. There are none. Move on to item 7, ordinances and resolutions, second reading. Item A.
An ordinance amending Amherst Codified Ordinance Section 121.04 Standing Rules of Council as it relates to the starting time of regular council meetings.
Mr. Goodell.
I'd like to make a motion to take item 7A to its third reading.
Ms. Vasil.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to take item A onto the third reading. Any comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mrs. Vasilk?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Move on to item B.
An ordinance amending Amherst Codified Ordinance Section 1149.06, 1149.07, 1149.08, and 1149.12 of Chapter 1149 signs.
Mr. Miller.
Move to take 7B to third reading.
Mr. Goodell.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to take item B onto the third reading. Are there any comments? Mr. Bukovac.
Thank you. I'd like to have a question for Mr. Pecora, please. Under section 1, 1149.06, item F, I just want to be clear, and your confidence, I know this came out of your department, so I guess it's a silly question, but there's no, I want to make sure that there's no way that somebody can go, well, look, I'm allowed to have a 96 square foot sign. And I'm going to the extreme and exaggerating here, but to make my point.
Based on E. So go back to E.
Well, yeah, like Mr. Miller just indicated, no single temporary sign shall have an area on the single face of the sign which exceeds 6 square feet.
Understood.
So I think that with F, if you read them both together, F says the combined total square footage of all plural temporary signs, plural, including the area of each face of a two-sided sign, and single parcel of real estate shall not exceed 96 square feet. So I think
And I understand the
our
wording.
interpretation would be that no one shall have a sign on the single face which is greater than 6 square feet. So our building department will be tasked of if they see a 96 foot square sign, it's going to be taken down immediately, or it's going to be, we're going to be acting quickly on it, because this is the clear reading of the ordinance.
I understand. Thank you, that's the only comments I had.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for Mr. Jeffers, which is not here, so I probably won't be able to get this to it. This right here is your huge sign, as my kids used to say when they were little. This is a 2x3, 6 square foot. Mr. Mayor and I had a discussion over how big this sign would look, and this is one of the standard signs that they put out. And this right here would be the biggest it could be when it comes to square footage. It could be, I think, a ratio different than 24 by 36, as long as it doesn't hit that square foot maximum. So, if you're wondering what the signs would be, and if it's going to stay 96, which I'm fine with, as we have more than a few races sometimes during election, that would allow you to have approximately 8 signs, correct? If they were both that double-sided.
That's correct.
So we could have 8 of these double-sided signs, both sides, stuck in the yard. Would that be a lot? Would it really fill up a yard? Well, maybe, but I'm a full believer in free speech, and during that time, we have enough items in here, in this ordinance, to make sure that it's only, I believe we have a time limit on it and a time expiring after an event. I think we've set it up so that garage sale signs, political signs, real estate signs can all fall within that size. And I went around and took a look at this, and this size, there's a couple real estate signs that are really, really, really close to that. So I think 6 feet is a good call. That way we keep political speech and commercial free speech the same. So some people were still trying to get their minds wrapped around how big a 6 square foot sign would be. And remember, that's 6 square feet on each side, so this would be a 12 square foot if it's double-sided.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring that in just so that we can clear that up as to how big it would be, and thank goodness it's not 96 on one side.
Right, exactly.
Thank you. Mr. Winarski?
That's exactly what I was going to ask about. When we had talked about this, we were looking at a standard, whatever standard political sign or a rummage sale sign, and come to find out, actually it's 24 by 18. That's pretty much so your cookie cutter, what most of us have. So I was going to ask, does this 6 square feet on one side achieve what we want? With the demonstration, thank you very much, we see what we're in for. I guess I would just ask council, is that consistent with really what our community wants to see? Is it that too large, too small? I don't think it's too small, but I'm just going to ask point blank. I like the idea of a smaller sign, but if everyone else is comfortable with what Mr. Miller showed, and thank you again for bringing it, so be it. I just wanted to ask. Personally, once again, this is my preference. I prefer what we see, the 24 by 18. So it'd be 3 foot on one side, 6 foot on both sides. That's it. Just wanted to throw it out there, gang.
Thank you. Mr. Bookbeck, you had a
I
comment?
have no comment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll call for the vote.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukabak?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Motion carries. That completes item 7. Move on to item 8, ordinances and resolutions, third reading. Item A.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director to solicit bids to trim trees on a unit basis in the city that interfere with the electrical distribution lines at a cost not to exceed $80,000, and authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director to award the contract for such work to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Bookbeck.
I'd like to move to adopt, please.
Mr. Goodell.
Second.
Second motion on the floor to adopt. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukavak?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mrs. Vasilk?
Yes.
Motion carries.
It's ordinance O-16-12.
Moving to item 9, miscellaneous acknowledgment of the public. Anyone here wishing to speak on any item? If not, we'll move on to item 10, agenda requests and committee meeting schedules.
I have one, Mr. President. It's going to go to Community Development. It's agenda number A-16-17, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Lorraine County Metro Parks, donating an easement for Phase 1 of the Beaver Creek Trail, declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Finance, Ms. Vasil?
No item, please cancel.
Thank you. Building and Lands, Mr. Janik?
Mr. President, we have one item, A-16-16, the resolution to instruct Safety Service Director to implement the 2016 sidewalk repair program, not to exceed $40,000. This is coming back from a tabled motion 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Back
That's
for 7
complete.
o'clock next Monday.
Thank you. Streets, Mr. Bukavak?
Streets has no items, please cancel.
Thank you. Community Development, Mr. Goodell?
I have one item, Mr. President, A-16-17, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Lorraine County Metro Parks, donating an easement for Phase 1 of the Beaver Creek Trail and declaring an emergency.
Is that complete, Mr. Goodell?
That is complete.
Thank you.
What time will we do that?
7:15.
7:15.
We'll still be arguing about the sidewalk.
We don't have to say yes.
Executive, Mr. Manchurian, Ms. Vasil.
No items, please cancel, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ordinance, Mr. Miller?
No items, please cancel.
Thank you. Utilities, Mr. Janik?
No items, Mr. President, please cancel.
Recycle, Mr. Miller?
No items, but keep recycling.
Thank you. Technology, Mr. Bukavak?
No items, please cancel.
Thank you. Police and Fire, Mr. Winarski?
Nothing at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Annexation, Mr. Miller?
No items, please cancel.
Thank you. That completes item 10, reports administration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Kukuka?
Yeah, our audit team has started the 2015 audit, so they've been in our office and working with Glenn and the other departments. And report.
Thank you. Mr. Pecora?
Yes, actually, I'd like, if it can convene an an executive session to discuss an imminent legal matter, just briefly, so.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Appreciate that. I have just one item. Mr. Jeffries opened the bids for the breathing apparatus for the fire department last week. Bids came in very good. Finley Fire Equipment was the winning bid. Came in about $30-some thousand less than what we expected, so little less than $213,000. We expected up to $250,000, so that bid's been awarded. We've given it to the contractor, and he's going to order those for us. So that was a good buy. That's it. End of report.
Thank you. Mr. Bukavak?
I'd like the motion to accept the reports of the administration.
Mr. Goodell?
Second.
Motion is second to accept the reports of administration. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Reports are accepted. Mr. Miller?
Who's the bid to?
Finley Fire Equipment.
Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. President.
Ms. Vasil?
Let's go into executive session to discuss pending litigation,
Or imminent, yeah.
imminent
Yeah.
litigation.
Mr. Goodell?
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those, okay. We are adjourned into executive session at 7:18.
Wow.